So I had a conversation with an acquaintance of mine. It's been a few weeks now. And in that conversation, the 2024 election came up, as sometimes happens in our conversations. I made a comment to this person. I said, hey, are you ready for this? Because my feeling is it's going to be a contentious election. There's a lot of other words I could probably say about it. And it moved straight from this kind of casual mention and conversation to frustration and anger. And I felt like what I have felt in many of those interactions with other people, I felt unsafe to share what I actually believed. Because I didn't know who this person was exactly. I didn't know where they stood. I didn't know what they believed. And so I used a tried and true technique. I said, hey, how about that weather? And just changed the subject. So I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but the current state of U.S. politics is pretty tense. And if you're here today and you're worried, you're saying, uh-oh, because the preacher's up here talking politics in the church, I want to tell you to take a breath, relax. I'm not here to talk politics. What I am here to do today is I want to talk about our faith and how that can help us navigate a divisive political landscape. So we're in a new series. It's called Do Unto Others, and we're focusing on the golden rule. The golden rule, of course, being do unto others what we want them to do unto us. And we find the golden rule in the book of Matthew, and it comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. So the Sermon on the Mount is like Jesus, it's his pinnacle teaching. You can read about it in Matthew 5. It goes all the way through into chapter 7. And at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, he offers the golden rule, almost as if to say, if I could summarize everything I've taught you up to this point, here is what I would say. Here's what I'd tell you. And this is Matthew 7, verse 12. He says, therefore, that's the summary statement. That's the summary word. Therefore, you should treat people in the same way that you want people to treat you. This is the law and the prophets. So if he could sum it up, if he could encapsulate everything that he was trying to teach, this is what he would say. And that law and the prophets, he uses that in one other place in the book of Matthew. He uses it when he shares the greatest commandment, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Everything in the law and prophets is summed up in those two commandments. So what we're going to do is we're starting a series, yes, but this is meant to be more of a campaign. And by campaign, I mean that we are doing this with other churches. So we're borrowing this in a sense, in a way, from Church of the Resurrection, the United Methodist Church, the Resurrection in Kansas City and the Kansas City area. And they put together this campaign and asked other churches to be a part of it. And it's to help us prepare ourselves for the upcoming election. And how are we to behave? How are we to act during this time? And the Church of the Resurrection has not actually preached this yet. They haven't talked about it. They just released some of the graphics and things for it. So we're borrowing some of that. We're going to be doing this with other churches. But here's my thing. If the Church of the Resurrection wants to use anything that I preach, they are welcome to do so. So if Adam Hamilton, that's the pastor up there, if he wants to use it, he's welcome to do so. But listen, we live in a really divisive time, don't we? I mean, that's where I want to start today. We just live in a really divisive time, but it's nothing new. We have been through things like this really since the beginning of humanity. There's plenty of evidence all around. Look at the church. We have so many denominations. And why is that? Well, we get together, but then if somebody decides, well, I don't quite believe like you, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to start a new denomination. We've got so many denominations, I can't keep track of them. In the political realm, you can pick any year, definitely decade, and you can name any number of conflicts, controversies, wars, disputes. You'll always be able to find something highly divisive in any year that you choose. So I'm not trying to downplay where we currently find ourselves because it is divisive. But my point is I'm trying to set us at ease because we have been here before. And because we've been here before, we can work through it again. I believe that that is possible. And the golden rule is going to be our guide. Do unto others as we would have them do unto us. So there was this study. It was done by Pew Research. It's a very reputable research group. And they asked, it was over 6,000 people, to describe the current state of U.S. politics using just a word or phrase. And 8 out of 10 people, this is 80%, used a negative word. Words like divisive, messy, corrupt, polarized, chaos, and dumpster fire. 10% remained neutral. Neither good nor bad. It's kind of part of what we have to deal with. 9% refused to answer the question. So that leaves a whopping 2% of people who had positive feelings about U.S. politics. Now, here's the good news. At least we can agree on something. But there are more things that we can agree on that are not so good. There was another study that was done by Pew Research, and they're showing that we're becoming increasingly polarized. So if you have felt that, there is data to back that up. We are becoming increasingly divided. And so when I say the word polarized, what I mean is if you could picture a globe, and you have the North and the South Pole, basically what we're moving to those polar opposite ends. We are dividing ourselves into camps, and we are increasingly viewing one another as enemies, people who are in the opposite camp. So they did this study, and in this study, they found that we really engage in a lot of harmful rhetoric and beliefs about the opposite side. One of those in particular, though, we believe it at the exact same rate. So this works for both Republicans and Democrats. 30%, this goes from 2016 to 2022, 30% roughly of both Republicans and Democrats viewed the other side as unintelligent. That was in 2016. Now, if you move forward a few years to 2022, it increased by 20%. Almost the exact same, we're looking at the same graph here. That 1 percentage point is pretty much negligible. So now 50% of us believe in 2022 that the other side is unintelligent, and I believe that this trend has probably just continued on into 2024. There's other words that we use to describe ourselves, and there's another graph we're going to throw up here. These are other things that we would use. We would say the other side is closed-minded, they're dishonest, they're immoral, and they're lazy. And that one on the very bottom, this would be the bottom right, that it says if you say 4 or more of those things about the other group, see those are like almost at 50% each, where we say 4 or more of those things about the other side. And here's the thing, this is my reflection. We're not going to overanalyze this too much. But my reflection is it's not that we just don't agree. We don't respect or value one another. And that is a problem. It's highly problematic. So like I said, though, we have been through this before, and I think there is something, though. We face unique challenges that we haven't had in our world, and that just drives the polarization. It drives the division. So the first thing I think that we have to deal with that we haven't maybe in a little while is I think we are really starved for leadership in our nation. We don't have a lot of leaders that are bringing people together. What you get out of a lot of our leaders is there's divisive rhetoric, it's an us versus them mentality, and all that does is further divide us. It's not that we can't get in there and hash out politics. We can have policy differences, right? And maybe work something out. But when we have rhetoric that says, they're less than, they're unintelligent, they're all these things that we named, and that's happening from our leaders, we just don't have a great example set for us. And a lot of us will just model what our leaders do. They create the environment, they give us permission to behave in the way that they did. So I think our leaders are not setting the right tone for us. But we aren't going to do that, you all. We are going to do something different. The person that we are going to follow is Jesus. We're going to follow his lead and his examples. In Ephesians 5, the Apostle Paul writes it like this. He says, therefore, be imitators of God. We imitate the life of Christ as dear children and walk in love as Christ has also loved us. That's our goal, that's our aim, that's our mission, is to imitate who Christ was. The other thing that we have to deal with in our world is we have to deal with social media. And social media is still, we've had it for a long time, but it's still a relatively new phenomenon, and it has changed life as we know it. It's changed politics, it's changed the church, it's changed how we communicate with each other. And in social media, it is full of misinformation. Misinformation is where someone's just wrong. They put something out there and they don't have all the right information and they put it out there. Maybe they have good intentions, but it's just wrong. But some of us will come across that and will believe it is true, and we accept it as true. The other thing that we'll find on social media is disinformation, which is, it's like misinformation, but it's slightly different. Disinformation is really propaganda. People are putting something together and there's an intent to deceive. So they actually are lying and spreading propaganda. We encounter all of that stuff on social media. There was a meme that was put out during April Fool's, right after April Fool's, and it said this: now that April Fool's is over, this struck a chord with me. Everything posted on the internet is true again. So that's another unique challenge that we have to deal with in our day and age that other generations have not. The other thing that is a challenge for us is we really do have non-traditional news. That's how we consume it. It's not in the traditional way. Most of what we get, I believe, isn't even news, it's political commentary. So what you turn on some TV program, or even you're scrolling through social media and you have someone telling you what they think about the news, right? So they're always, we're all biased. We all have a lens that we look through. If we can't admit that, then there's a problem. So anytime we receive the news from someone, there's a bias or a spin that's put on it, and we may not always get exactly to the truth. So what we do, though, in these environments, and I've seen a lot of this lately, is we will just say, well, everybody else is the problem. It's certainly not me. We'll tend to scapegoat our politicians, and we'll scapegoat the media, or we'll just say everybody's wrong, but I know, if people would just listen to me, I have it right. And what I want to say is, look, our politicians are worthy of critique, criticism, and blame. And the same is true of our media outlets. But we cannot use them to justify our own poor behavior. We're not going to scapegoat them and just only blame them. We're going to take some responsibility for this. We're going to follow Christ's example, and we're going to ask the question, how am I contributing to this polarizing environment? What can I do to try to help bridge the gap? How can I lessen the divisive rhetoric and feelings we have towards one another? And that doesn't mean you can't have your convictions and your beliefs and your politics. But what it does mean is you're willing to come and listen and see another person and hear them out. So, as I was thinking about this series, and we've got 4 weeks after this that we're going to be in this series, I just began to think, though, okay, if we're going to treat others the way that we wanted to be treated, especially in the political realm, what do I not want people to do to me? And what have I heard from other people that they don't like when people do this? And the first thing is no one likes a know-it-all. No one wants somebody to come to them and they just have all of the answers, like they have it all figured out. That never feels good, because it's like as soon as you say something, they're ready to say, nope, you're wrong, I have the right answer. And how can you work with someone like that? The other thing that I've heard and I have felt is when people don't care about us, and it's hard to say exactly what that's like, but you can feel it. You know how you think you're in a conversation, but there seems like there's a wall up, because as soon as you're done talking, you're like, they just can't wait to jump in and share what they think and believe, because they're not really truly listening or caring or hearing you out. They don't care. I don't like that. None of us do. How about when people are flat out rude? When, politics and religion, it has the tendency to bring out the worst in us. It just does. But when we get defensive about our beliefs, or we go on the attack, on the offensive, when people slander and people demean others, No one wants to be involved with someone like that. One of the worst things that we do is we make assumptions about the other person. So as soon as you find out maybe one of their beliefs, well, I know about you. I know how you'd vote. I know what you believe, and you're what's wrong, right, with this world. I don't like it when people just state my beliefs for me or lump me in with someone else. And so, you all, if we don't like when people do these things to us, why would we do them to other people? And I'm not saying you do, but it's a question for us to ponder. And so over the next few weeks, what we're going to be looking at is the virtues of humility and compassion, kindness and respect. And we're going to allow those values to carry us through the next election season, this whole election season, through the summer and on into the election season. And this is going to be a campaign for us. We're going to continually remind ourselves and call ourselves back to these things. We're doing this very early because I felt like if we waited until the summer, it'd be too late. There'd already be too much stuff out there. And there already is stuff out there. So we want to do this early. This is kind of a preemptive compassion, mercy, grace, love strike before it becomes too heated. And here's the thing. We want these things, these values, humility, compassion, kindness, and respect, to be the things that govern us, regardless of who is elected to govern. And I believe you all, we need this so badly in the world. We need it right now. And a divisive culture is the culture where the church can and should shine the brightest. We need what the church has. We need what Jesus teaches here and now in this moment. That's why we're coming together to talk about these things. And if we are to treat one another the way that we want to be treated, I think it starts with the foundation, and that foundation is love. The Apostle Paul, again, he writes about this in 1 Corinthians. He says, now these three things remain. He's got this big, long exhortation about what we should be about. And he says, faith, hope, and love are important, but the greatest of these is love. Because without love, we are nothing. And love has the power to bring us together, and it has the power to transform enemies into friends. I had the opportunity, I got a phone call from a person who they volunteer. They're from the church. They volunteer at the hospital, and they asked if I would come and visit a person who had become really ill. And that person didn't attend this church, but they just wanted someone to come see and visit them and pray with them. So I said, sure, of course, I'll go do that. And I went in and I sat with this woman. We had a great conversation and we prayed. And it was a few months went by and I found out that she had passed away. So I went on Facebook and I found her husband, actually, and I messaged him. And I said, I was really saddened to hear about her loss. And I just wanted to tell you that we had a great visit and we got to pray together. And I just wanted to send you whatever love and support that I can. And this was the response I got from him was shocking because I just didn't expect it. And he actually replied and he said, I'm a Satanist. And now if you can think of two polar opposites, I mean, I think that would be it, right? A pastor and a Satanist. And then he told me this. He said, I don't agree with you, but I want to thank you for trying to bring her some peace. What? And it's amazing, isn't it? If we sit down with someone and we are face to face with them, no matter how different they might seem, or it's really hard to hate someone you're close to. We all want deep down the same things, and it starts with love.